A bead of sweat trickled down Ben's forehead as he meticulously ironed his suit, the faint hum of the television accompanying him. Not a lot of space in this hotel room, he thought to himself. His daughter Emma, age 14, and Logan, age 12, sat transfixed by America's funniest home videos, their laughter momentarily distracting him from his pre-interview nerves. He glanced at the clock on the wall. He still had a few hours before bed, then tomorrow, the interview that could change their lives. Things have been difficult for the kids since the death of their mother a little over a year ago. She had been the glue that held this family together. Ben had worked odd jobs here and there, doing what he could to provide for his family. Tomorrow, though, could change everything. Working as a civilian construction contractor on a military base had not been the life he had dreamed of, but it was a good start. Kids, remember Dad has a big day tomorrow. We'll need to go to bed early, Ben reminded them gently, aware of their upcoming bedtime. After my interview, we'll go explore and see what Lemoore has to offer. Sure thing, Dad, Emma replied without taking her eyes off the screen. Logan simply nodded in agreement, letting out a sigh. The TV screen suddenly switched to a news alert, the cheerful sounds of laughter replaced by an urgent tone. Severe thunderstorm warning for Lemoore, California, the newscaster announced. Lightning, high winds, rain, flash flooding, and possible hail expected. Do not travel outside unless it is an emergency. Oh man, Logan muttered, disappointment evident in his voice. Are going to have to stay inside tomorrow? Before Ben could answer, a loud boom shook the entire hotel, rattling the windows and causing the hangers in the closet to clang together. Worried murmurs escaped both Emma and Logan's lips as they leaped towards the window, curiosity instantly piquing their interest. Easy, guys, Ben reassured them, fingers gripping the iron tightly. It's just thunder. Look, Dad, Emma exclaimed, gesturing to the street below where police cars and ambulances sped past, sirens blaring. What's going on? Is everything okay? Of course, Ben lied, feeling a sudden pang of unease. He hated not having all the answers when it came to his children's safety. I'm sure they're just responding to the storm. The power in their hotel room flickered, casting eerie shadows around them. It went off completely for a moment, plunging the room in darkness before coming back on again. Stay away from the windows, Ben instructed, his voice firm but not unkind. I don't want you getting hurt if this storm gets out of hand. Okay, Dad, Logan mumbled, his eyes still glued to the chaos outside. Hopefully this storm will be over before my interview, Ben sighed, setting down the iron and running a hand through his hair. The last thing he wanted was to make a terrible first impression due to delays or being drenched because of a storm. But as he looked at his children, their faces filled with trepidation, he knew that he needed to be strong for them. Don't worry, guys. Everything will be okay and this storm will pass soon. As the wind and rain picked up outside, drowning out the sound of sirens, Ben felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He couldn't fail this interview, not when it meant so much to his family's future. But right now, his main priority was keeping Emma and Logan safe and secure during this unpredictable California storm. A piercing air raid siren sliced through the cacophony of rain, wind, and thunder, making Ben's heart clench in his chest. The kids' eyes went wide as the siren's wail continued, drowning out their father's earlier reassurances. Is that from the base? Emma shouted over the noise, her voice trembling with fear. I don't know, Ben replied, trying to maintain a calm facade for his children. But we have to stay inside and... Before he could finish, several loud explosions rumbled in the distance, louder and more intense than any thunder they'd heard. As military fighter jets roared overhead, Logan tugged at Ben's sleeve, his face pale. Dad, what's happening? Are we under attack? Stay calm, Ben said firmly, his thoughts racing. Let me see if I can find anything on the news. With the power flickering off and on in the hotel, the family huddled together on one of the beds, cell phones in hand, searching for any information on the chaos unfolding outside. Ben tried not to let his hands shake as he scrolled through the screen, fearing for his children and the life he was hoping to build for them in this new city. Suddenly, an emergency alert blared from their phones, startling all three of them. The message read, "An imminent threat has been identified in your area. Seek shelter and stay away from doors and windows. If you are not in a shelter, you need to seek shelter immediately. Do not attempt to leave your shelter until further notice." Ben stared at the words, feeling as if they were branding themselves into his mind. Emma and Logan bombarded him with panicked questions, but the sounds of their voices were drowned out by the rain, high winds, thunder, and the ongoing explosions. Listen to me, Ben said, placing a hand on each of his children's shoulders. We're going to stay here, in our room, and wait for more information. We'll be okay. The power flickered off and on again before finally staying on. The same emergency alert blared from the TV, causing them all to jump. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the wind and rain eerily stopped, leaving an unsettling silence in their wake. "Stay away from the windows," Ben repeated, his voice strained. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Could it be a tornado? Ben thought to himself. Being from Oklahoma, that threat was all too real, and being stuck in a hotel was not the ideal location if this was the case. Ben pulled together his composure and reminded himself that his first priority was keeping Emma and Logan safe, no matter what happened next. The eerie silence following the sudden halt of rain and wind sent a chill down Ben's spine. It was as if the world outside had paused, waiting for something to happen. He couldn't shake the growing sense of unease that gnawed at him. "Damn it," Ben muttered under his breath as he rushed to the window, unable to ignore the nagging feeling that they needed to know what was happening out there. The sight that met his eyes caused him to catch his breath. A black sky loomed overhead, and a seemingly impenetrable wall of fog in the distance, stretching all the way to the heavens, moving rapidly toward them and swallowing everything in its path. "Stay away from the windows," Ben barked at Emma and Logan, who had moved closer to see what their father was looking at. "I'm going down to the lobby to talk to the staff. I'll be back as soon as I can. Just stay here and stay calm." As Ben turned away from the hotel room window, a car came speeding into the hotel's parking lot, honking wildly as it swerved dangerously close to crashing into the lobby doors. His heart pounded in his chest as he hurried out of the room, leaving his bewildered children behind. "Hello?" Ben called into the hotel room phone, gripping the receiver tightly as he tried to reach the front desk. But there was no answer, only the ominous silence on the other end. Frustrated, he slammed the phone back onto its cradle. "Think, Ben, think," he whispered to himself, running a hand through his hair. His mind raced with possibilities. Were they under attack? Was this some kind of natural disaster? The uncertainty was maddening, but he knew he needed to stay focused for the sake of his children. "Stay in the room and away from the windows," Ben chastised his kids. "I'll check with the front desk. I'm sure everything's okay." He descended the hotel stairs 2 at a time, determination fueling his movements. As he reached the bottom, he couldn't help but think of how far they drove from Norman, Oklahoma. Their journey to Lemoore, California, had been filled with hope and excitement for a new beginning, and now he's not so sure. "Excuse me," Ben called out as he entered the lobby, searching for any staff members who could provide answers. The speeding car outside and the encroaching fog only heightened his sense of urgency. He knew that whatever was happening, they needed to act quickly if they were going to survive. The heavy lobby doors were violently thrust open, sending a well-dressed, middle-aged man sprinting inside. His arms flailed wildly as he gasped for breath and screamed in terror. "Demons! In the fog!" Ben's heart thudded painfully in his chest as he struggled to comprehend this unexpected news. The wailing air raid siren abruptly stopped, leaving behind an unsettling stillness that was only interrupted by distant explosions, which seemed to be coming from the direction of the nearby airbase. But this time it was different. "Call the police!" the man yelled, desperate for help. "Don't go outside or we're all dead!" Despite his warnings, Ben and a few other curious guests cautiously stepped out into the entranceway of the hotel to assess the situation. He couldn't ignore the potential danger, but he needed answers. The fog was advancing rapidly, bringing with it the sounds of car horns blaring, emergency vehicle sirens, explosions, and chaos in the distance. "Maybe we should get inside," Ben shouted over the cacophony. The group hurried back into the lobby. Marilyn, the usually calm and composed receptionist, was in a frenzy as she paced back and forth near the front desk. Her eyes were wild with fear and her voice shook as she pleaded, "I need to get home to my kids." The others tried to reason with her, urging her to stay put for her own safety, until they could figure out what was happening. But she ignored their advice and stormed through the lobby doors, fumbling with her keys in her rush. "Please don't go," Ben called after her, but it was too late. As Marilyn ran off in a panic, she was enveloped by the thick, ominous fog. As quickly as Marilyn disappeared, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, sending shivers down their spines. An eerie silence followed, broken only by the distant barking of a dog, a sudden yelp. Then silence again. The group exchanged horrified glances, their breaths coming in shaky gasps as they tried to make sense of what had just occurred. Suddenly, out of the shadows where Marilyn had disappeared into, a deep, unearthly growl and clicking noise erupted. It was like nothing they had ever heard before, causing their hearts to race with fear. Without a word, they ran back to the safety of the lobby, fumbling to close the heavy doors behind them. Fear etched on their faces. They huddled together in terror as the strange sounds outside grew louder and more menacing. "What was that?" Mandy, a guest, shrieked. "What's happening? Help me move this furniture in front of the doors," Ben instructed, his voice shaking. They heaved shelves, couches, and chairs to barricade the entrance, trying to regain some sense of control over their situation. "Anybody else notice how quiet it is outside?" Mandy asked softly, her earlier panic replaced by a chilling calm. As they strained to listen, they realized she was right. The explosions and sirens had ceased, as if the world around them had simply stopped existing. As Ben pressed his back against the makeshift barricade, his thoughts raced. What's going on? Are my kids safe? How are we going to survive this? The only thing he knew for certain was that he couldn't give in to fear or despair. He needed to be strong for his children and for everyone else trapped inside the hotel. In the darkness, Ben's heart nearly stopped as the hotel power flickered once more, and then went out completely. The lobby was plunged into an eerie silence where only the shallow, heavy breaths of the trapped guests could be heard. "Damn it," someone muttered as they fumbled with their cell phone, trying to find a signal amidst the chaos. Others joined in, but their screens remained stubbornly devoid of service. Mark, the hotel manager, furrowed his brow in concern. "The emergency generator should have kicked in by now," he said, mostly to himself. Turning to Steve, the hotel facilities manager, he continued, "Steve, can you go check on the generator? We need power to figure out what's going on." "Sure," Steve replied hesitantly, glancing nervously at the barricaded doors. "But I don't want to go alone." "Of course not," Mark agreed. "Anyone willing to go with Steve?" Two male guests stepped forward. Adam, a tall, athletic-looking man with a determined expression, and Mohammed, a middle-aged man clutching a flashlight tightly in his hand. "We'll go," Adam declared, his voice unwavering. "Good," Mark nodded. "Be careful, all of you." The group cautiously crept through the dark corridors, their steps muffled by the thick carpet. As they approached the back door, Steve turned to face them. "The generator is just outside and around the corner," he said, pointing to a dimly lit hallway. "But with this dense fog, I'll need someone to hold a flashlight for me while I fix it." He glanced around at his companions, hoping one of them would volunteer. "I'll do it," Adam volunteered, accepting the flashlight from Mohammed. "Right," Steve said, opening the door and stepping into the gray abyss. "Mohammed, keep the door open and be our lookout." "Got it," Mohammed replied, holding the door ajar as Adam followed Steve into the impenetrable fog. Ben could only watch helplessly, praying that they would be successful and return safely. "Please let this work," he thought, his mind racing with what unknown horrors could be lurking in this nightmare. The moment Steve stepped into the thick, swirling fog, it seemed to come alive with a sinister energy. It engulfed him, shrouding him in its murky depths. Some large, unknown shape moving with unhuman speed snatched him by the head, slamming him to the ground, dragging him deeper into the fog, as if he were nothing more than a mere plaything. His screams were abruptly silenced, leaving only eerie echoes of something wet splashing on the asphalt reverberating through the air. Adam and Mohammed's faces twisted in terror as they exchanged horrified glances before desperately slamming the door shut, their hands trembling uncontrollably. The fog seeped under the cracks of the door. It seemed almost alive, its cold tendrils reaching for them like ghostly fingers. "Did you see that?" Adam gasped, his breath hitching in his chest. "Whatever it is," Mohammed muttered, "it's not human." The two men sprinted back to the lobby, their hearts pounding in sync with their footsteps. As they burst through the doors, the fear etched on their faces told the story before they could even speak. "Steve, he's gone!" Mohammed choked out, his voice barely audible. "Something took him," Adam added, his eyes wild with terror. The group stared at them, mouths agape, trying to process the horrifying implications. Continue the story with part 2.